Howdy everybody, Steve here, KM9G. A lot of people have asked me about burning SD cards, so we are going to burn Raspberry Pi OS onto an SD card. And that's all we're going to do in this video, just to make sure that we have this for future reference. Let's get to it. I will have links for everything in the description down below, but it is fairly straightforward to do this. Raspberry Pi Foundation has made this new app called Raspberry Pi Imager, and it is fairly straightforward to download for Windows, for macOS, for Ubuntu, and it's easy to install on Raspberry Pi. We will go ahead and download this first on Windows and install it, and it's pretty much the same for everything. You download it, you click the download, and it installs. It's really straightforward. This isn't the hard part. This isn't the part that trips people up, but we've got to get to the other side of this. And then once we get that done, I will do the download for Raspberry Pi, because then we'll have a working Raspberry Pi to do it with. Download for Windows, because I'm running this on Windows today. And I need to put this in my downloads folder, and I got a whole bunch of stuff in my downloads folder. And it's just called Imager 174 when it downloads. Remember that you put it in your downloads folder. Downloads quick. I'm going to drop down the downloads icon there, and I'm going to pick Imager, and it's going to launch. What you didn't see was a little warning that just popped up asking me if it was okay to run the program that I just went through all the trouble of downloading. Yes, it was okay. And then we now have the installer running. So I'm going to run through the install process. It's next, done. There's install, and then it wants me to run it right after I am done. And why not? But if you didn't run it right after it was done, it's in your start menu under Raspberry Pi Imager. All right, now we have this thing all set up, and this is actually pretty neat because you have the ability to choose a variety of different operating systems. So I am going to pick Raspberry Pi OS, and I want the 64-bit OS. And then the next thing I need to do is I need to choose some storage. So my laptop has a built-in SD card reader, but it is the full-size SD card reader. So I need to take my little SD card and stick it in my big SD card, and then I need to stick it in the SD card hole in my laptop. We have inserted an SD card in. I looked at my SD card contents to see if there was anything there that I was worried about overwriting. There is not. The next thing I need to do is choose storage. And under choose storage, it pops up, and there's only one choice here. Raspberry Pi Imager is smart enough to not let me overwrite the storage that my operating system of my laptop is running off of. So I can't overwrite my C drive for all you Windows folks out there, or my slash drive on Linux. It's going to give me removable media only. So I'm going to pick that card. It happened to be a 64 gig SD card when I put it in. This is very close to 64 gigs. So I'm seeing a 1-to-1 match there. In my brain, it says, let's do this because that's what I want. My internal storage on this laptop is a terabyte. So clearly 64 gigs is not a terabyte. Click OK. But before I hit write, there is this little gear icon down in the corner, which is amazing. So I want to set my host name, and I want to call this Demo Pi. And then I want to enable SSH so I can log into it. You can choose to do that or not. And then I want to use a password. My username is going to be my name. My password is going to be super secret, and I want to configure my wireless LAN. This is also really interesting. This is taking my wireless LAN settings from Windows, so that should be the right password. Let me take a look real quick. Don't peek. Yep, that's the right setting. And then my wireless LAN country is going to be US. Go back to where you can type ahead. And then I want to pick my locale settings, America, Chicago. I'm in Central Time Zone. That works for me. Keyboard layout is US. And then I want to go ahead and leave those just the way they are. I'm going to click Save. Then I'm going to click Write, and it's going to do the thing. Yes, I'm sure I want to do that. It is going to finish writing here, and it's going to verify. Okay, verify has completed, and it says everything's fine, and I can now remove the SD card. I don't need to go through the normal eject process or anything, because if you remember, in the settings area, we told it to go ahead and eject when it was done. So I'm going to hit Continue, and then there's my SD card. Let's get the Raspberry Pi booted up. Come on, Rainbow, there she is. As you recall, the first time you boot a Raspberry Pi, it expands that root folder to occupy all of the storage space available. So if you're doing this headless, it might take a minute to see what's going on. All right, and now we have a running Raspberry Pi desktop install. Next up, I want to show you how to do this as if you were on a Raspberry Pi machine. So as you recall, there was the command line option here to install from a Raspberry Pi OS, sudo apt install rpi imager. Let's do that. We're going to launch a terminal. Okay, is it in the menu? Imager, right there, under the accessories menu. Now, what's going to be a little difficult about this is the Raspberry Pi only has one SD card slot and it is currently occupied by the boot media, so we cannot use that. What we need instead is a USB-based SD card reader, and this is actually all you need to do that. It's actually really slick. The SD card slides right into the USB port itself, the USB plug on the device. So let's do that. This is another SD card, and this is where it goes. That's pretty slick. I don't think when they invented the mini SD card size format that they knew that that was going to happen, but it was. And you'll also notice that this one is blue on the inside, which means it is USB 3. And so we need to get this put into our Raspberry Pi. And since it's a Pi 4, it's got USB 3, so it goes into one of the blue USB sockets. Let's do that. All right, she is in and has been found. I am going to cancel that. I've already checked to see what was on it, but when you insert this, make sure that you know what's on it. I'm going to choose my OS, and I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did the last time, which is Raspberry Pi OS 64-bit. I'm going to choose my storage, and it's the same thing. I know this is a 32 gigabyte card. I know it's a 64 gigabyte card from earlier in the video that we booted off of, but also it doesn't give you your boot drive, so you can't pick the wrong storage media. So let's go ahead and do this, and then we're going to go through the options in the same way. I'm actually going to skip it this time because I showed you that already. I'm just going to hit right. And yes, it's going to format everything and get rid of all of my data. But that's okay because this is my external SD card that I already checked. It's going to ask me for my user password for my Pi to escalate privileges to be able to write to the SD card. Since I did click on this to initiate the action, I know that that's what this is asking me for. If this box pops up and you don't know why, just hit cancel. Okay, we got through the write stage and now we're on the verify stage. I actually don't, I'm just going to rewrite this for the next part of the video. So I'm going to hit cancel verify here, which will be fine. And it will say you can remove it. So we're going to remove it. This thing does get a little hot for some reason, but it writes just fine, and I usually don't leave it in for any longer than is necessary. Let's get over to the Ubuntu side of the house, and we'll do it over there also. Here we are on Ubuntu. This is actually Linux Mint, which is a flavor of Ubuntu, which is a flavor of Debian, which is a flavor of Linux. So all the way down the rabbit hole. Raspberry Pi OS is actually also a flavor of Debian. So what we need to do is we need to download for Ubuntu x86. I'm going to save this in my downloads folder. And it's going to download really quickly, and I'm going to push this button here, which is my downloads thing. And I just want to click the open file part. And then an older version is available for download from the apt repository. So you could do the exact same thing that we just did on Raspberry Pi, sudo apt install rpi-imager, or you can choose this one. I'm going to choose this one. I'm going to click install package. It wants my root password. Again, I initiated an action. It's asking me for a password. There's a one-to-one relationship there. And then it wants to install a bunch of additional stuff. Let's do it. And we're done. Let's see if we can find it. And the cool thing about Linux Mint is I can start typing, and there it is. We know it's called Imager, again, from doing it on the Raspberry Pi a second ago. It's going to pop up. We're not going to burn it this time, but the same exact thing applies. This laptop has an SD card slot, so I can just stick in my SD card reader, or I can use that same device that I have, the USB 3 to SD card reader writer dingus thingy. But there it is. This does not have the little setup gear icon on it. There is a keystroke for it. Let me see if I can find the keystroke. Okay, some quick Googling tells me that it is Control-Shift-X to bring up the hidden advanced options menu. We already went through all the settings there. And then you click choose storage and you click write. And the same thing's going to happen. I do not have any external media storage in place, so when I hit choose storage, it's going to be empty. I need to insert some external storage in. Let's just do that to see what it looks like. And there we go. 32 gig SD card, that's what I put in. 1-for-1 match. No ability to overwrite my internal storage. So you're perfectly safe doing this. So that is 3 operating systems down. I do not currently have a macOS machine set up. I'm in the middle of playing around with Windows, deciding whether or not I actually like Windows enough now that they've made a whole bunch of changes. So far, it's not looking good. On macOS, you will get a .dmg file that downloads. You open it up, there's a window, and then you just drag the imager into your applications folder, and you are good to go. And everything else works exactly the same. Stick your SD card in. You cannot choose your local storage to overwrite your operating system. It's just safe that way. So there you have it. There is 3.5 ways of writing SD cards using the Raspberry Pi Imager. I highly recommend the Raspberry Pi Imager for writing the Raspberry Pi OS. There are many, many other ways to do it. You can use Etcher, or if you're a hardcore command line freak like me, you can use DD, and that will work just fine as well. But Raspberry Pi Imager gives you lots of options, including the ability to set up your Wi-Fi, your user ID and password, and turn on SSH. I hope this tutorial was very helpful for you. Leave a comment down below with some tips and tricks that you might have learned along the way as well. Otherwise, there is a video right up here I think you will enjoy next. Thanks for being awesome. I'll see you over there.